Hello and welcome back. I'm Clint, and today we're going to be covering our third lesson in my comprehensive video series on how to write comics. This is the series that I wish existed when I started writing comics. So the third one here, we're going to be covering starting your comic. This is sitting down and writing your script. So in the last, and if you haven't watched it, I suggest go watch the last two videos. In the last video, I mentioned doing something like this, where you have an outline, you've got a section that tells as your scenes broken down, and you've got scene one, and then you've got maybe a name for your scene, and you've got some goals for that scene. It doesn't really matter how it looks. It's just really getting something on the page and giving you a goal to work toward. So once you've done that, I'm going to start at the beginning. And for this scene one, I'm going to call it the orb, because that's really my main goal here is for Joanne to get the orb. I've got a whole bunch of things I'm dealing with. Writing your very first scene can be very difficult. For me, it's the hardest part about writing. I'd much rather write an ending than write a beginning. Not that I enjoy writing beginnings, but endings to me just are easier. There's more to work with. You have more leeway. The beginning is very difficult because you have a lot of work. You have a lot of things you need to accomplish very quickly. So because we're writing in comics and it's such a beautiful medium, our first one here, setting, is very easy to accomplish, especially when you've got a amazing artist that's going to be doing it. So setting's easy. Your protagonist, you're going to have to introduce your protagonist. You're going to have to introduce your antagonist. Now, you might have several different bad guys to deal with. You don't have to introduce your top villain or whatever, but you have to introduce at least the idea or the problem that there is an antagonist out there, and that leads us to our third one, and that is the problem. So these are just some basic things that every story should be accomplishing in the first scene. So then next we have story goals, and this is just for my story. I really need Joanne to get that orb in this first scene. That's very important for me to just get into the action and get things moving along. Okay, so I wrote a first panel here. A few things I want to point out. You don't have to sit down and figure out exactly how many panels you need per page. You don't have to figure out how many pages you need. You don't have to figure out, all those sort of logistics yet. Right now is actually one of the most fun times about writing, and that is just freely writing. So the way that I do that is I write panel, just so I know this is all happening in one panel. I don't number it. I don't put a page number, nothing like that. I'm just going to write panel just so I have my basically places held panel, and then I'm going to write a description of what visually is in that panel, and then I've got dialogue, sound effects that you would put below. That's the basic look of a panel description. So for this panel description, the nice thing about scripting comics is there's not just one way to do it. If you Google comic book script and you look at the different ways that they're formatted or written, they vary so widely, and that's a really cool thing about comics as well. It's not super narrow. So a lot of this depends on who your artist is. If your artist is very intimate with the project, let's say you are the artist, you're the writer and the artist, your panel descriptions don't have to be super intense because you understand what it is that you're doing. If you're hiring an artist and this script is going to be their very first view at the story, then your panel descriptions are probably going to have to be a little bit beefier. In my experience with writing comics, I have decided to write panel descriptions so that they're leaner, so that there's not quite so much. I just feel like a lot of the little details that are unimportant don't necessarily need to be there, and the artist can have the freedom as they're drawing the page to add add their own kind of flair, I guess. So usually you'll see the first time a character is mentioned, their name is in all caps. And so right now I've got two characters mentioned. I'm going to read this for you out loud. It says, Joanne is hanging from the Capitol building with ropes and window washing gear. We are looking through the window at her as she squeegees the window. The city extends behind her with a fisheye effect. She talks on the phone with Jonas. Okay, this isn't perfect. This is not the perfect panel description. This is a first draft, and so I'm not gonna be too hard on it yet. So a few things. I have Joanne, what she's doing. So she's hanging, and I thought it'd be a cool shot if we're looking, it's as though we are inside, looking out through the glass at her as she's washing the window. So I will say things like we're looking through, like where we are, and that's essentially a camera angle. I always think of it as a camera angle. I realize that there is no camera in comics, but that's how I like to think of things, and that's how I frame the panels. And so I will say where we're looking, or sometimes I'll even say the camera. I avoid that, I guess. I don't think it really matters all that much. You're welcome to say the camera. But yeah, give the artist a point of view. And then, I've got the establishing shot. So I'm introducing the character as well as the city all in the same panel. This is really actually going to accomplish a lot because we can see that there's a floating city. It's extending behind her. It's kind of fish-eyed, which if you ever watch videos like of people climbing up really tall towers, you ever watch those like free climbing on the Eiffel Tower, things like that, they record them with those fisheye lenses, and it is unsettling. It is so, makes you just feel like it's off kilter, and it's maybe even higher than it really is. I don't know, but I kind of wanted that effect, so I thought let's do it with a fisheye look, and talk to the artist, and they might have other thoughts, but right now this is my script. I can do whatever I want. And then she's talking on the phone with Jonas, so I have two characters here. There is dialogue that's going to be happening. So we move down to the dialogue. Joanne, and again, one note on formatting. I've seen this done several different ways. I've done it different ways where they're indented or they're in line. It really doesn't matter. You do it how you do it. Especially if this is an indie comic, you don't need to fall in line with any standards. Okay, so Joanne, 3 more windows, and then I still need to do the north side. Okay, so they're mid-conversation. That's what it sounds like, right? She's telling him what she has left to do. Jonas, over the phone. That's too bad. All the TV cameras are on the south side. Joanne, we need rent, not a TV appearance. Okay, so I'm guessing that that's probably all I want to say in panel 1. What I'm trying to do, and this is a first draft, is we're showing a little bit of the interaction between the brother and sister. I could definitely do that in many different ways, but I think it's important to throw something out there and see how it feels, see how it works. So I'm also showing that they need money. She's trying to earn money, and then there's something special going on that day. So even though there's only 3 lines of dialogue here, and nobody actually said, we are poor working class people, there's something exciting happening that we would like to watch or maybe be a part of. Yeah, we have a lot of work to do, whatever. There's all those things we could say. I'm instead giving 3 lines of dialogue that show how that's being done. So I hope that makes sense. So once I do that, if I feel okay about it, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next panel and write the next panel. And so the thing here is you're just telling the story. You're just getting words on the page. That is a bigger deal than you think. Yes, you're probably going to be editing most of it and rewriting most of it. Maybe none of this will survive at all, but it's so much better than having a blank page. I can't emphasize how important it is to start writing and get something on the page, because it's much easier to look at something on the page and say, I feel like something's wrong with this. I need to fix it, than there is to say, how do I write something perfect from the get-go? So I can't emphasize enough. Again, you've got to get something on the page. That's where the magic starts to happen. Okay, so as you're working through your scene panel by panel, again, no numbers or anything, you're just writing panel by panel, and you're telling the story with descriptions and dialogue and sort of just working your way through. As you do that, I've got some things for you to keep in mind, okay? So you'll often hear in writing classes or anywhere in writing, show, don't tell. This is really, really important. Because comics is such a visual medium, it makes this job easier. However, there are a lot of new writers or novice writers or just not real great writers that'll do lots of telling. And so, for example, I'm actually going to jump down here. Han shot first. Are you familiar with Star Wars? And the original edit of Star Wars had Han Solo in the bar, right, with the alien. This is the first time we're introduced to Han Solo. He's having a little discussion about money with the alien, and he shoots the alien, right? When this happens, it's showing us something. Han Solo never said, I'm a bad dude, and I will do anything, do whatever it takes to get punks off my back or whatever. You know, he could have said that, and that would have been not very interesting. But no, instead, Han Solo shot first. He's the aggressor. We're being shown that he is smart, right? He's not reactive, he's proactive. And he his moral compass is a little bit different than probably most. So that's awesome. So when they re-edited that and they had him shoot second, it looked silly, but first off, that it told us something totally different, that he was reactive. It told us that Han was more defensive, I guess. Usually somebody that's only shooting to save their own life, like usually we would value that type of person differently. Like that's the noble thing to do. However, that undermines the character, right? Han Solo is the type of person that shoots first. And I guarantee you this wasn't just a mistake when it was put together originally. They think about these things at length, even just from a scripting level. There's a lot of thought that's put into it in editing the video itself. There's a lot of thought. Anyway, so when I'm talking about show don't tell, think about Han Solo shooting first. That is showing us a lot about the character. So you can also show and not tell by having dialogue show. If I go back to my description here, again, I didn't tell you that these are working class people. Nobody said, hey, we're working class people. But I'm trying to show you by, she's dirty, she's cleaning windows in this massive city that would be quite scary to clean windows on. And she's talking and she's saying that she needs rent money, not a TV appearance. She's got her priorities set toward getting rent. And so that's showing you a lot about the character without explicitly saying it. And that's how good writing is. And again, I could do a better job up top, but that's the goal. Okay, so avoid backstory. So what you don't want to do is in these precious few first panels, few pages, you don't want to tell backstory. You want to start your story where it's interesting. I'm kind of skipping around here a little bit. Start your story where it is interesting. And this is difficult. I'll admit it is harder than you think. You pick a place where you think your story should start it there, write it out. And then after, you got to be willing to edit it. You got to be willing to change it. That's really, in my experience, that's the best way to do it. It's the only way that really works. Give it a try, write it out, and then ask yourself, is this backstory? Is this interesting? Would this be more interesting if I started it, a page in the future? Would that be more interesting? Am I telling too much backstory? Just give your reader the information that they need to know. And, not extra stuff. Just what do they need to know? Okay, and this might sound obvious, but it is helpful to understand. You need at least two characters to make a story. Even if you think about that show, Castaway, Tom Hanks stuck on an island by himself, right? Most of the movie. If he was there the whole movie by himself, it would be so boring. It's definitely more interesting. You might still think the movie's boring. I'm not going to say that, but it's definitely more interesting because he had the second character of Wilson, which was just that volleyball. That gave him somebody to talk to. You need someone to talk to so that there's dialogue. There has to be some back and forth between characters because that's where conflict arises between characters. And even just little conflicts make for an interesting story. So even if we go back here, even in these few lines, there's some conflict, right? Jonas wants her to get on TV, and she does not want to get on TV. She just wants to get her money and get out of there, right? That's small. It's not like they're in a fight, but it's still conflict. And that makes for an interesting story. So two characters. Han shot first. I explained that. Don't edit yet. So you might be tempted as you're writing to edit before your fingers are typing it out. Don't do that. Just write. Your first draft is not something that's going to be perfect. It's supposed to be messy. So write it out. Stay in that world in your brain. Enjoy the setting and enjoy the experience of telling a story that has not existed before. It really is fun if you just allow yourself to do it. No one's judging you. Just write it. Don't edit yet. You can edit later, and you will edit viciously, and that's okay. But it's not time for that yet. Last but not least, have fun. If you're having fun when you're writing this and you're adding things that you think are cool, you're adding dialogue that you like and enjoy, you're adding panel descriptions and all that kind of stuff, it really is fun. I love doing this. You're creating a whole new world. You're creating new people. You're creating circumstances. It's a lot of fun. So go with that, because sometimes on your first draft, you're going to come out with things that you have not yet thought of. Through the process of actually writing it out, you're going to find that there's interplay between characters, and you're going to understand your characters a little bit better. There's a lot of things that you'll pull out just by writing and having fun and using your own logic to move the story forward. So that was lesson number 3 on writing comics. There's so many more to come. If you like this, please like it. Let me know in the comments below what questions you have. And please don't forget to subscribe. I want to keep making these videos, and I'd love to hear from you. See you next time.